everyone, it's Hayes, and as you may have guessed by the title and the thumbnail, in today's video we're going to be defending Marinette. And oh boy, I cannot wait for the comment section under this video, although to be fair I was expecting people to be a lot more horrible for the comments under the Defending Zoe video, but actually I was pleasantly surprised. Most people, like even if they still disagree with me by the end, which was totally fine obviously, they were still very nice about it. But I'm a bit more worried for this video because like Zoe hasn't been in the show for like at this point like I guess a season and a half really, whereas Marinette has been in the whole thing, so therefore the hatred for her runs a lot deeper since she's been in the whole thing. So I'm a bit more nervous for this one, but we can do it. And before we go any further, as always, I haven't read the show Bible or seen any of the leaks, so I'd really appreciate it if you could keep those out of the comments. And as such, because I know most people who watch me are waiting to watch the show in chronological order, whilst I have seen episodes 16 Protection, 18 Emotion, 19 Pretension and 20 Revelation, I'm not going to be talking about Marinette in those episodes and anything she does. And as of filming this, we have got the trailer for Migration, but no date as of right now, me sat here filming this, so I haven't seen Migration either, so I can't discuss Marinette's behaviour in that. So I'm only going to be talking about what Marinette does up until the end of episode 12. Perfection. If you want to discuss her behaviour in 16, 18, 19 and 20 in the comments, please put like spoilers in all caps so other people know to avoid them, but either way, whichever one you're waiting for, chronological or not, please don't put leaks down in the comments. I also want to say as well that for the purpose of this video I'm just going to focus on the show. I know there are some Miraculous comics, but I've seen panels of them online, but I'm not actually sure where I can even find the full thing, so I've never read them, so I'm only going to be focusing on Marinette in the show, not in the comics. But I have been made aware a few times now that there is a part of the comic where Marinette is quite racist, I believe. I'm not really sure how the situation happens. It's very strange, if you know what I'm referring to, because she's wearing a cardboard box. It's very weird. So I'm not going to be discussing it in this video because, like I said, I haven't read the full comic, but I'm just going to state here at the top of the video that I don't think Marinette is racist. I don't believe she's done anything that would be described as racism, and I feel like that comic that is racist says more about the person who wrote it and drew it rather than about Marinette the character. But I just felt like that was important to say since it is like an important facet about her character. But since nothing like that has ever happened in the show, I feel like that's more to do with the views of the person who wrote that comic rather than of the rest of the character of Marinette, because she's never done anything like that in the show. But I just thought that was important to say, but I can't really speak more on it because I don't even know where to find the comics. I don't know. If anyone knows, that'd be great, because I'd love to read them and look at them because they do seem very different to the show, so that'd be interesting to look at. But anyway, so a couple of weeks ago now I put a post up on my community tab asking for the reasons why people hated Marinette in order to make a video like this. So for my Zoe video I didn't need to do that because I've started watching the show. Like I started from season 1, but I didn't, like in real time, it wasn't until like season 2 was halfway through airing. So that's, I guess, when I joined the fandom, during season 2. But I would have described myself at that point as a very inactive member of the fandom. Like, yeah, I'd watch some people's videos on it, but I didn't make my own videos and I wouldn't leave comments. So whilst I knew what was going on generally with the show, I wouldn't have described myself as an active part of the fandom like the way I am now. I would describe myself as a very active member of the fandom. So when it was a Zoe video, it was easy. Like, I'd been making videos just a few months before she was introduced into the show, so I kind of got to see all the for and against arguments why people disliked her, so that was much easier for me. However, like I said, I've only been an active part of like the fandom since season 4, and whilst yeah, I've been in it since about season 2, not super active. So whilst I've always known not many people like Marinette, I've never known the concrete reasons as to why, other than the one I said in the community post that I heard she was being called a Mary Sue quite a lot. So I wanted to ask to get everyone's opinions about why they hated Marinette, or if they didn't hate her, what reasons had they heard for her. So this video is basically like a accumulation of all of those, so it's not just like me thinking these are the reasons why people hate Marinette. It's the actual reasons, or at least all the reasons left into my community post. I didn't look elsewhere for other reasons why people dislike her. So I'm going to try and address every single point that was left in my comments about why people dislike her. However, that being said, I'm not actually going to be reading out any of the comments. I don't want anyone to feel like I'm attacking them personally. As it was, no one left anything that was wholly unique under that community post. Like, as I was doing it, I had the community post up and like the notes app up as well, so I was writing down things, and when I found something new I'd write that down. But then as I got further down the community post, 2 or 3 other people would have said like pretty much the same thing. So no one said anything wholly unique about why they hate or why they'd heard other people hate Marinette. So I really hope no one feels like I'm attacking them, but I'm so sorry if it does feel that. So I hope when I get to a certain point that you may have commented, please do not take this personally. This video is of course going to be my own opinion as both a professional writer and like just like an active member of the fandom who does dearly love the show. And like I always say, besties don't always agree with each other, but besties always respect each other's opinions. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this video, and I would appreciate it if you watched all the way through. I know it's going to be a long video. My voice already hurts. I filmed a meme review before this, so I'm already dying slightly. I would appreciate if you watched the whole thing before clicking off or leaving a nasty comment, because I think the end of this video is quite important about the hatred and vitriol thrown at Marinette. So if you still disagree with me by the time you get to the end of the video, that is totally fine, but you can still be respectful in the comments. So like I said, I'm pretty much going to be responding to everything left in the comment section, or at least I think I got everything anyway, but there were some comments under that community post that were more about pacing problems, about Adrienette and Cat Blank being brought up, and whilst I think they are very valid points, I want to save those comments for a video I want to do about the Love Square, and I feel like the pacing problems it's had this season. So whilst Marinette is obviously involved in that, since she is part of the Love Square, I didn't really feel like it was for this video, since I want to focus on her as a character rather than relationships. Of course, during this video I'm going to end up talking about Adrien and Alia because that's just the way it is. Same with in the Zoe video, I end up talking about Chloe for quite a bit because those characters are linked. But I'm going to be saving those comments specifically with the pacing problems of it for the Love Square video. I just really wanted to focus on Marinette really as a character, but other than that I think I managed to gather like all the reasons why everyone disliked her, from my community post anyway, and I'm gonna address all of them because I apparently hate myself. Of course I'm sure there'll be other reasons why people hate her floating around on the internet, but if they weren't under my community post, I don't know, maybe I'll do a part 2 to this if other people come and say, oh well, she does this, she does that. I don't know. I'm only addressing the ones that were under my community post. So let's start with a brief Marinette recap, and I do mean brief because I have things to do and I'm sure you do too, and she's been in every single episode. There is no way I'm going over every single one. So we're going to do a brief Marinette recap. I hope you're hearing this editing haze because she doesn't like to be brief. A brief Marinette recap of Origins to perfection. So we are first chronologically introduced to Marinette in Origins, and she is a clumsy teenage girl who ends up getting a Miraculous due to Master Fu's inability to cross the road, and he decides, yeah, she can save the city even though she can barely wake herself up in the morning. Her first outing as Ladybug goes well, except it doesn't, because she forgets to do the Miraculous Ladybug, and things get worse and she rescinds her Miraculous, but when her new friend Alia is in danger, she takes it back to save her and kicks Hawk Daddy's ass, which makes Cat Noir fall for her but forget him because she's too busy falling in love with Adrien under an umbrella to notice they are the same person. Season 1 progresses nicely with Marinette equally messing up but also winning, and unfortunately Lila is brought into the picture to mess things up, but it's okay because the writers forget she exists until the season 2 finale. Before that though, Marinette and Adrien get closer and dance together, and oh my god, I died the first time I saw Despair Bear, and Marinette also loses the B Miraculous, and Chloe, of all people, ends up with it. Big old yikes to that. However, Chloe does do a good job at first, and Alia and Nina also help to save the day in Season 2. Season 3 is bloody depressing, and sees Marinette kind of sort of but not really fall for Luca, because Adrien kind of sort of but not really falls for Kagami, but it's okay because Adrien and Marinette end up dating!
And then the world ends. Marinette's jealousy makes her pick the wrong holder, which causes Chloe to get akumatized in the season 3 finale, who's surprised, not me, and Marinette's carelessness also causes Master Fu to be taken by Mayura, and they lose all the Miraculouses. It's all Gucci though, because she gets them back, but Master Fu does lose his memory and she becomes the Guardian, and Adrien and Kagami officially start dating, and so do Marinette and Luca. Like I said, pretty depressing, but you know, Party Crasher was that season, so not all was lost. You know, I don't get why people hate that episode, it's an absolute banger, you have no taste. Season 4 starts with Marinette #not having a good time, and she breaks up with Luca, which fair enough, she didn't actually love him anyway, although I don't know why he stayed with her when he knew that too, what a weirdo. But the pressure gets to Marinette and she ends up breaking down and telling Alia that she is Ladybug. This in turn ends up pushing Cat Noir away, but it's all good because they end up dating. Again! And then the world ends. Again, I think the two of you are being sent a message here, and it's stop trying to date each other or you're going to destroy the universe or something. Like, it's not worth it. Just stop it. God. Season 4 ends in complete disaster though, because Marinette gives who she thinks is Adrien the dog Miraculous to help her, but it's not Adrien, it's Felix, and surprise, surprise, he betrays her, but Marinette refuses to give up, and she and Cat Noir decide to take on Monarch Daddy and immediately get the Rabbit Miraculous back from him. That's the only win they have over him so far, and the rest of the season has been filled with Marinette going back and forth about whether she likes Adrien or Cat Noir, and she is going to lose her mind when she finds out they are the same person.
So, the first thing I want to start with, and it's the one reason I already knew people disliked Marinette for, is her being called a Mary Sue. So before we even start talking about whether or not she is one, let's define it, because when I see people talk about it, most of them have completely got the definition wrong. So if we're going to talk about it, let's define our terms before we decide whether she is one. So a Mary Sue is a type of female character who is depicted as unrealistically lacking in flaws or weaknesses. It's just the basic definition, nothing super fancy. So with that definition in mind, and not whatever warped definition of Mary Sue you have in your head, I understand why Marinette is viewed as one. She is great at a lot of things. We know from the episode Ladybug she's really clever. We can all see she's kind in the majority of the episodes, but not all of them. She's a talented designer. She wins the hat competition in Mr. Pigeon, which is followed up in Style Queen. She also makes those glasses for Jagged Stone at one point. She's also good at gaming and probably a few other things I'm missing here as well. And for the most part, I do think she's a great Ladybug, a leader and a guardian. So she's good at some things, like, you know, everybody else on the planet is. We are all good at some things, but by definition, she is not one. Part of the definition says they are depicted as unrealistically lacking in flaws or weaknesses. And Marinette has so many weaknesses and flaws. Adrien is her main weakness, which is exploited all the time. For example, I think the first time it was exploited in the episode Volpina, it was exploited in Strike Back, even though I don't even think Gabriel was doing it knowingly, it just happened and it worked to his advantage. Another big weakness or flaw she has is the amount of pressure Marinette puts on herself to do a good job in whatever it is, and when she fails, she really takes it out on herself. Marinette also makes tons of mistakes in almost every single episode. She's super clumsy, which has led to disasters on her own. She's gotten people akumatized before. She also steals things. Can't really be a Mary Sue if you're going around stealing things, in my opinion, and she uses her powers for her own gain sometimes. She's gotten better at not doing that, but she definitely did used to do that in the episodes Volpina and Cat Blanc are two really good examples of that. And she was also not that great of a Ladybug when she first started. She was a bit of a disaster in Origins, wasn't she? And also in the season 4 finale, and yeah, arguably we could say all those mistakes were down to Risk, not necessarily down to her, but to me it was still technically her faults. You know, it still happened and it was still a mistake. And also just in general, when these mistakes happen, Alia and Tiki and even Adrien have called her out on that before for her behaviour. For example, in Volpina, Marinette transforms into Ladybug, uses her powers for her own gain to basically shout at Lila, and whilst I'm kind of like in two minds about it, I'm like, well, Lila was lying, she did kind of deserve it. I'm also like, maybe you shouldn't have used your powers for your own gain. And Adrien tells her off in the park. Like, she's been called out on it before in the show, and like I said, she's not kind all the time, like in the episode Volpina, and also like in the episode, I hate this episode, Animaestro, Animaestro. I hate Marinette in this episode. To be fair, I don't think it's a great episode anyway. I don't really enjoy it, mainly because it's got Thomas Astrachan. But yeah, I hate her in that episode. it's kind of painful to see Marinette behave like that, if I'm being honest, but she does face the consequences for her actions. Chloe finds out she has a crush, she's going to go and tell Adrien. Does Marinette apologise to Kagami? No. Should she have? Yes. But we're going to talk about a bit more of that in a minute, about the consequences. So it's kind of the same with her stalking. That's another popular reason why people dislike her. However, in my opinion, if you're stalking someone, that's not very good behaviour, so you couldn't by definition be a Mary Sue if you were stalking somebody. Like, it just goes hand in hand. Every time I see someone call her Mary Sue, that same person also goes over how annoying all the mistakes she makes are. And I'm like, you can't have this both ways. She can't be a Mary Sue and you be annoyed at her being perfect, but then in the same vein you can't get annoyed at her making all these mistakes. She can't be both. If someone is making mistakes, by definition, they cannot be a Mary Sue. That's it, that's the end of it. But anyway, back to the stalking. As someone who has had a stalker and had to go to the police like 3 times before they'd actually do anything, in my opinion what Marinette is doing isn't stalking. Knowing a lot of information about someone isn't stalking. So again, let's define our terms. A stalker is a person who harasses or persecutes someone with unwanted and obsessive attention. Is it obsessive? Yes. But is she harassing or persecuting him? No. At no point in the show has Adrien ever been like, hey, you're creeping me out, stop. You could argue in the episode Troublemaker, Adrien's face, like when he's watching the TV right before the Akuma attack, and he sees all the photos when it's just after the ad break, he's a bit alarmed by it, but if anything, I think that face was more of surprise, because to him, Marinette really didn't really speak to him at school at that point, so he's probably a bit like, why would she have all of that? Adrien's kind of opinion of Marinette is like, yeah, we're friends, but I don't really think she likes me all that much. So I'd be a bit weirded out too. However, he doesn't seem to mind, because the next day at school, I'll just play the clip for her, he kind of borderline flirts with her in the locker room.
Look, about what you saw on the show, the photographs in my room.
You mean the photographs?
The photographs, exactly! It's not what you think. See, I'm really into fashion and...
Are you lying?
No, I'm so not into you.
So he doesn't actually seem to mind. So it's not actually stalking. That's not what Marinette is doing. Is it creepy and a bit weird? Yeah. Is it obsessive? Yeah. But is it technically stalking? No. Also, her stalking gets her absolutely nowhere, and it's mostly done for comedic effect because it's a kid's show, and while I do disagree that I don't think they should have gone down that route, I would have done it differently, like just by causing loads of misunderstandings between them and made it really cute and stuff. But it does get her nowhere, and it shows children that there's just no point in doing this. So I've just started watching Miraculous Ladybug with my niece. My niece is not the target audience, so the target audience for Miraculous is 8 to 10. My niece is 5, and we've watched about half of season 1 at this point. And she has already worked out what not to do when she likes a boy or a girl. She's already worked it out. And she is 5. Most people watching the show and most people leaving these hate comments about Marinettes are far older than both my niece and the target audience. And my niece has already worked out, but these other people haven't. When Marinette stalks Adrien, she doesn't really get any closer to him. She's just a teenage girl with a crush. It's only when she acts herself when she gets somewhere. So Psychomedian in season 4 episode 5 is a great example of this. So she gets Harry Clown to help her to do that cringy as all hell comedy routine. It doesn't work, but only at the end of the episode, when she's herself, that's when Adrien likes her. Again, in the Shanghai special, the whole like idea of it, and it is kind of creepy, is that Marinette is like, I'm gonna go to Shanghai to spend time with my uncle. She's not, she's going to be with Adrien. But because that's her goal and it's creepy, she doesn't get to do that. Yes, of course they are in Shanghai together as Ladybug and Cat Noir, but they do not know who the other person is. The only point in the special, I believe, Adrien and Marinette get to be together as Adrien and Marinette is the ending. That's it, that's the only scene together, I'm pretty sure. The ending of the special. So once again, her stalking gets her absolutely nowhere, and another great example of her doing this is in the episode Risk. They have that great chat during the prison ball scene, and that's when Adrien finally starts to realise, oh, maybe I have feelings for her. Like, in my opinion, he actually fell for her in Origins Part 2 in the umbrella scene, but because of like his social upbringing and being very closeted, he didn't realise that until that scene in Risk, and it took him 100 episodes to realise it, I swear to God. But it's kind of partly due to because Marinette was never really herself around him. She was always so anxious and she just couldn't act like herself. But those moments where she does have some clarity and can be more like herself, when she shows Adrien who she is, that's when he starts to fall for her. So why is it like this? Why does she stalk him? Why does she steal phones? Why does she make mistakes in general? Because one, it's realistic. We all make mistakes. No, I've never stalked someone or stolen someone's phone, but I've made plenty of mistakes in my life. And two, this show is made for children. I did a more in-depth video a few weeks ago talking about writing for children and all the different things you got to consider, because writing for children is very different to writing for young adults, which is the target audience I apparently write for as a published author. Also very different when you write for adults, so different boundaries and just different things you're not allowed to do when you write for children. But the show is for children, and most people seem to forget when they critique it, because like they just apply it to their own age and like, well, that wouldn't happen, why isn't this happening? It's like, the show isn't meant for whatever age you are. It's for 8 to 10-year-olds. They got to do certain things to adhere to the guidelines, the safety guidelines of writing for that target audience. So like I said, I made a more in-depth video about why Miraculous is the way it is, but basically, long story short, when you write for children, you have to teach them something. When it's young children, it's very more on the nose, like these are the colours, these are the shapes. When they get older, it tends to be a bit more about abstract things. So Miraculous often teaches stuff about like the power of friendship and female empowerment, which is great. But it also shows to children that it's 100% okay to make mistakes, even large ones like in the season 4 finale, as long as you try to rectify it, even if it takes a while, like what we're seeing with season 5. And like I said, we're going to come back to Annie Maestro. The consequences aren't always her having to do that, the consequences are different, and that's fine because it shows children it's not like just say sorry and it's all okay. There are different consequences for different actions. So there are also a lot of comments saying she wins all the time. No, she absolutely doesn't. The season 3 finale, the season 4 finale, yeah, she did kind of win, but it was always at a cost. There was some loss. Season 3, all the Miraculous identities revealed apart from hers and Cat Noir's. She loses Master Fu, but yeah, she does get all the Miraculouses back, but it's at a cost. In season 4, all the Miraculouses are gone, but she does kind of start to rebuild her relationship with Cat Noir. But again, it's at a huge cost, and she's spending this whole next season paying for that. So whilst there is some gain, there is also some loss, and in the case of the end of season 4, a lot of loss. And before anyone says, well, she doesn't often lose during the season. Yeah, because it's for children. Most children's stuff doesn't have the protagonist lose in the middle of it. They wait until the end. Unless there's a special episode, for example, Kwame's Choice, they have the Miraculouses taken from them. But like, again, it's for kids. We know the villain won't have a chance until the end. Harry Potter is a great example of this. Yeah, other things happen during the school year, but Voldemort always waits until the end of the year to do something. Because Harry Potter is for children. A lot of people seem to forget when they critique this show, it is meant for children, not for teenagers, not for adults. It is meant for 8 to 10-year-olds. It's blatantly obvious, which people just completely forget about that when they critique the show. I also saw a lot of comments under this community post saying she faces no consequences, but like, she faces loads. Just because the consequences aren't people screaming at her doesn't mean she faces none. Like, when she does cause an Akuma due to her bad behaviour, don't you think a pretty good consequence of that is that she has to go and save them? It's a teaching moment for Marinette and the audience. And as a child, I personally responded better to someone carefully taking me through what I did wrong and how I can fix it and what I can do next, rather than them screaming at me. No one really learns anything from being screamed at, other than learning to get scared of when they make a mistake. Like, I think it's great the way Marinette's mistakes are handled in the show, and yeah, she repeats a lot of mistakes because the audience is young. They need to learn, so she repeats the same one. So I know it seems like Marinette doesn't learn, but it's for the audience's benefit. There are also a few more comments talking about how it's not a truly believable hero story because there's no clash between Marinette as Marinette and Marinette as Ladybug. Because she balances it so well, apparently, and I'm like, we are not watching the same show. Really good, strong, recent examples of this happening in the show. Truth, Gang of Secrets, Optigami, Sentibubba, Hacksan, Ephemeral, Strike Back, Multiplication, Determination, Reunion, Elation, Transmission, Deflagration, Perfection. All show that conflict within her. At first it's due to keeping a huge secret like this, and then Master Fu is gone, she has no one, she isn't used to it because she's usually a free person, hence why she breaks down far quicker than Adrien. She breaks down in episode 3 of season 4, he doesn't break down until episode 23, of season 4 in Kuroneko versus Gang of Secrets because he's locked inside all the time. He's used to keeping his feelings inside because his father won't talk to him about it. But the same isn't true for Marinette, hence why she breaks down almost a whole season quicker than Adrien. But even after that, there's still conflict of working together and working around other situations, like in episode 13 Optagami, 14 Sentibulba, 16 Hakusan. It's just, plus as well, like the whole of season 4 was like about the conflict between her and her real relationship in real life with Alia versus the one with Count Noir. Like, it highlighted the whole conflict within her, and not even just the season 4 finale, the season 3 finale as well, at the end of Heart Hunter with Luca. I'll just play the clip, but it's just like, at this point we are not watching the same show.
Yeah, I'm fine. Actually, no, I'm not fine at all. I'm so tired, Luca, of all these responsibilities, of having to put up a front all the time, of never being able to be who I truly am.
There is so much conflict within Marinette between Marinette as Marinette and Marinette as Ladybug. I just don't get it at this point. It just really seems like you're not even watching the same show as me. So in conclusion of this section of the video, I wouldn't have said Marinette is a Mary Sue. She can't be, like she physically cannot be when she makes so many mistakes. Does she do amazing things both as Marinette and Ladybug? Yes. And there's nothing wrong with that. Marinette is meant to be a role model for children, especially young girls watching, and while they have to see her make mistakes and face the consequences and apologise or whatever the consequences so they can learn from her, they also need to see someone who is proud of the good they can achieve so they can learn that about themselves too. It would be pretty depressing if Marinette was terrible at everything and failed all the time. It would be pretty boring if she was perfect at everything and never made any mistakes. So Marinette isn't a Mary Sue, she can't be. She is a good balance between what she's good at and the mistakes she makes. And I do think it is pretty ignorant for people to continue calling her a Mary Sue, because when they do, it makes you look like you don't even know what one is, or that you don't even watch the show. So the next part of the video is about Marinette's development, because there were quite a lot of comments saying Marinette has not developed. And I won't lie to you, like I said, I started watching the show with my niece when watching in chronological order, so we start with Origins first. And the girl we have in Origins is not the same girl we have at the minute. She is not. She is not the same. And maybe you didn't notice because development is meant to be slow. It hasn't actually even been a whole year in the Miraculous universe. By the time we get to the end of season 5, it will be the end of the school year, and even then we're still missing half of July and all of August, so it still won't have been a full year. But anyway, you don't get a personality transplant overnight. Development is slow, and if you do change overnight, it's usually forced. And then you'd all be complaining too, so make your mind up, she has developed. And I would argue that yes, she does often regress, but that's still development. Development in real life and in fiction, they aren't always linear. You can develop for the worse. Because that happens, like Chloe, I know this video isn't really about her, but she developed quite positively, and then she's come back quite a bit to kind of where she was in season 1, if not even worse than what she was in season 1. Development doesn't always have to be for the positive. You can develop badly. You can develop backwards. It doesn't have to be forward and great. And honestly, I'm not surprised this has happened to Marinette because all the pressure on her, I think, is pretty realistic. So she goes from someone who is fun and bubbly at first and can't really handle being Ladybug, but she does kind of manage to get the hang of it. She does a fairly decent job, but she still screws up from time to time and uses the power for her own good, and even loses a Miraculous in season 2, and then she screws up badly by giving a Miraculous to Kagami, not Chloe, in the season 3 finale because Kagami and Adrien were about to kiss, and then completely messes it up because that ends up with Fu being taken and her becoming the Guardian, which is too much for her to handle, which me too, would be too much to handle for me now at 26, let alone at 14. And she breaks down and reveals her identity to someone, which she shouldn't have done, but she really needed to do it for the sake of her own mental health. And whilst it helps her, it puts Alia in so much danger, and it seems to be going well though because she has Alia now, but she unknowingly pushes Cat Noir away, and just as their relationship is starting to heal, Risk comes along and she gives a Miraculous to Felix and not Adrien. All hell breaks loose, and now she has to deal with the consequences of her actions, which is just even more stress and pressure on her. She is constantly doubting herself, which is very unlike Marinette at the beginning of the show. And she is not the same girl we have now. And I do kind of understand in a way, some people still say she's a Mary Sue or perfect because she did develop quite positively in season 4. She became a great team leader and she gained so much confidence to the point where she arguably became careless which led to what happened in the season 4 finale. So like it was kind of like the plot of season 4. She becomes a really great leader, she becomes an amazing ladybug, she becomes an amazing guardian, she becomes so brave and confident to the point she gets so careless, and due to her carelessness everything is ripped away from her apart from Cat Noir. It was to make her scared and doubtful and anxious of herself and her decisions to set up for season 5. It was kind of the point of season 4. That's, you know, they didn't do it for no reason. There was a point behind it, you know? So whilst I would say it's correct that a lot of the time when Marinette gains confidence, she ends up taking like 2 steps back because of something happens to show her she shouldn't be confident, like in the season 4 finale, but that happens in real life too. As someone who has self-esteem issues, I really do relate to her a lot, and as she says in the season 3 finale, yeah, I'm fine. Actually, no, I'm not fine at all. I'm so tired, Luca, of all these responsibilities, of having to put up a front all the time, of never being able to be who I truly am. It seems Marinette quite clearly has self-esteem issues too. I think that's pretty accurate. Her arc is about feeling more confident about herself, and she really struggles a lot of the time with it, even though she's Ladybug, even though it seems like she's dating Adrien at the minute and he's in love with her. She still really struggles with how she feels about herself, and I think that's a great thing for kids to see, and I would have loved this when I was growing up, because even though like I'm a fully grown adult now, I have always struggled with anxiety. I didn't get diagnosed with anxiety until I was like I said, I'm 26 now. I didn't get diagnosed until I was like 18, but after like talking it through with my therapist, she thinks like I probably had anxiety and depression since I was about 8 years old. That's how long I've been dealing with this for, so I completely understand where Marinette is coming from. And kind of coming off the back of that, of course, we have to talk about the treatment of Adrien. So he was excluded a lot in season 4, which she did do, but again, to me that was basically like the whole plot of season 4. It was meant to happen. It was meant to show the breakdown of their relationship that would lead to the plot of a lot of episodes. However, in my opinion, she didn't do it consciously. She wasn't like, ah yeah, we're not including him because I hate him, he smells. He wasn't like that. It was because she could confide completely in Alia. Prior to her breakdown in Gang of Secrets, the only person she could talk to about this double life she has to keep was Cat Noir. After Gang of Secrets, she could confide completely in Alia. She didn't keep any secrets from her, as far as I'm aware. It seems that she's told Alia either everything or almost everything. Like, I don't know if Alia knows about Cat Blanc so far. She's given no indication that she knows about it. So maybe she hasn't told her that, but it seems otherwise. She's told her pretty much everything. So she didn't push Cat Noir away because she viewed him to be useless or whatever. She just felt so safe and secure with Alia knowing that she just chose to confide completely in Alia instead. And I think that's a pretty normal response to have, to want to have someone you can confide completely in when you're going through something like this, you know? Like, I don't understand the criticism. Like, that's meant to be the plot of season 4. You may not have liked the plot, that's fine, that's valid. If you didn't really like the plot of season 4, fair enough. But like, it was meant to be like that. It wasn't done out of hatred for Adrien, in my opinion. So don't get me wrong, there were some things that she did do were horrible. For example, throwing him in the bin in Glaciator 2. But he was being really creepy and pushy towards her at the start of that episode, which seems to be fine when Adrien does it, but when Marinette does it, it's like, whoa, whoa, hey, no, don't do that. But put a pin in that, because we're going to come back to that later at the end of the video. It's important to talk about, and we are going to talk about it, just not right now. I have some other points to make first, so just hold it in your mind, okay? But that treatment in Glaciator 2 was directly related to how he was towards her at the start of the episode. And again, in Kuroneko, as much as I really don't like that episode, I don't think it's very good, she treats him badly in that episode because of how he acts towards her at the start of that episode. The problems that arose in season 4 in their relationship was due to both of them and their poor communication, which just got worse and worse and worse. So for example, like, Cat Noir doesn't even realise he's being pushed out until episode 13, Optigami. He is slowly pushed out, but he's just like, he doesn't even notice till Optigami. Then in Senti Bubble he gets quite angry when Rena Rouge is like, actually it's only a 2-person job, we don't need you, goodbye. And he ends up breaking a chimney. In Glaciator 2, obviously it breaks down even more and he apologises for how flirty he's being. In Haxan, Ladybug doesn't even do the decency of telling him that she had to leave and she had to give the Miraculous to somebody else. And similar things happen in Rocketeer and Wishmaker, and in Wishmaker he just kind of alludes to how he's getting kind of annoyed with Ladybug, but he doesn't realise that he's being pushed out until Optigami. And yeah, don't get me wrong, Marinette definitely started this, But Adrien sure as hell didn't help. We can't blame everything on Marinette. She can't be the fandom's scapegoat. And also, speaking of Adrien, I saw a few comments saying she gets more screen time than him and that's a valid reason to hate her apparently. And whilst yes, Marinette definitely gets more screen time than him, and whilst also yes, I personally prefer Adrien as a character to Marinette, Marinette is the main character. It's never been a 50-50 split between them. Would I maybe like it to be in the future? Yes, but right now it's not. And I accepted that fact within the course of 30 seconds and I have since moved on with my life. I've got a PhD to finish. She's the lead character. She will always get more screen time over Adrien because she's a lead. If you don't like it, perhaps you should stop watching the show because that's what it's meant to be about. And I also saw some more comments saying she was controlling him when they're Ladybug and Cat Noir, and I just have to disagree with that, like, fundamentally. Like, she's the leader, and he's fine with it. Like, the only times he isn't is when he's being kept in the dark, like in Haxan and Kuroneko, and he calls her out on it, and she apologises. There's also the situation in Siren where he's having zero contact with the Guardian, so again, he calls her out on it, and she tries to rectify the situation by going to talk to Master Fu about it. Like, she tries to fix the problems in their relationship as soon as she knows they're there, hence why she gets so frustrated in season 4, because first of all, she didn't even realise she was pushing him out, and then when he did finally talk to her about it, he was kind of rude about it to her. In a team, even a team of 2, there has to be someone in charge. She doesn't control him. Yes, she tells him what to do, and he does it, not because she's controlling him, because he trusts her pretty much absolutely as a leader and as Ladybug. He's like, yep, okay. And he does it because he trusts her, which I think is a pretty healthy team relationship to have. It's the same with Natalie and Gabriel. I know things are pretty different now between them, but when we first found out they were working together in season 2, even though Natalie is definitely the more intelligent between the two of them, she was more than happy to go along with Gabriel's plans and help in whatever way she could because of how she felt towards him and how much trust she has in him. Again, that relationship has changed this season, but that's how it was, like in season 2. And it's why a relationship like, for example, Felix and Lila wouldn't work, because I don't feel that either of them are willing to listen to the other person. They would be constantly trying to one-up each other and get in control, and it would just end up with them basically trying to murder each other. Adrien and Marinette, and also Natalie and Gabriel, used to work because one of them was more than happy to let the other person be in charge and they were happy to follow what they did. That's not control. Those are pretty healthy team relationships to have, in my opinion. Like in Origins, Cat Noir is like, this girl's insane, this girl's amazing. He was willing to do whatever she told him, and that really hasn't changed. Like sometimes he questions it when he's unsure or in a bad mood, but like for the most part, he trusts that girl with his life, and I think that's a really healthy and strong relationship between the two of them to have. And also, speaking of Adrien, there were quite a few comments that said Marinette didn't truly love him and it's just an obsession, that she just loves the idea of him, and I just have to absolutely disagree, and to prove it, I'm just going to play you a clip from Jubilation. Kagami was the one who was in love with the idea of Adrien. Maybe her feelings are less superficial now because it seems like she's still in love with him. Maybe they're less superficial now, but definitely in season 2 and season 3, and I guess the start of season 4, she was in love with the idea of him. Marinette never has. She fell for him in Origins because of how kind he was towards her, despite her behaviour towards him with the gum, and her understanding of him and in turn her feelings for him have only grown deeper as they've gotten to know each other as the show has progressed. Don't get me wrong, I think she likes the fact he's a celebrity because it means she gets to have unlimited pictures of him, and don't get me wrong, if the person I had a crush on, like I went to school with, was a celebrity, I'd love it. I'd be googling their pictures 24/7. Don't pretend you wouldn't either. Okay, we all would. Alright, don't pretend you wouldn't. But in my opinion, Marinette's love for Adrien is genuine. It always has been genuine, and it's one of the sweetest things about the show. So, this next section, I'm kind of nervous about it and kind of anxious for it, ironically. I didn't even realise this was a reason why people disliked Marinette. I had a few ideas going into it when I put that community post up, but this was definitely not something I thought I'd ever see. But anyway, I said I would discuss all the points left, so I'm going to discuss all of them. But the other points I've discussed so far in the video feels like people, for whatever reason, just fundamentally lack a basic understanding of some aspects of the show, which is fine, or that they just don't even watch it, which isn't really fine, but it does seem a bit weird to critique a show you don't even watch. It seems a bit strange. However, this point, or this like group of points, does kind of upset me, and you'll see why in a minute. So basically the points being made by, again, several people, it wasn't just one person, I'm not singling anyone out here, is that Marinette's anxiety is annoying, she has panic attacks for no reason, she has too many panic attacks, and she has no reason to be anxious in the first place. And it did kind of upset me, to be honest, when I read those comments, because if you didn't know, I have generalised anxiety disorder, and actually in turn, I'm pretty mentally ill just in general. I actually have 5 in total different diagnoses for different types of anxiety disorders. One of them is generalised anxiety disorder, and one of them is also panic disorder, which means I get a lot of panic attacks, as the name suggests. I'm not as bad as I used to be, I've done a lot of healing and I have therapy every single week, but like, I'm still not great. And I know I sound very confident, but the key word in that sentence here is sound. I sound very confident. That doesn't mean I am. Like, this is what I see when I film. That's the camera, this is a script, we're here. I have 20,000 subs. 20,000 people are not here. Hello. It's just me sat in my bedroom talking to a camera. I know I sound confident, that doesn't mean I am. Okay, so like, you can understand why these comments may have upset me. Because I did basically view it as stigma against anxiety. And you know, I get stigma against mental health conditions exist. I also have something called psychosis, which means I hear voices and also see hallucinations, and it is a highly stigmatized condition, and I am doing my PhD on stigma against psychosis, schizophrenia and suicide, so people aren't afraid to go and seek help for them. So I am well versed in mental health stigma. And anxiety and depression, in comparison to something like psychosis or schizophrenia, are far less stigmatized conditions, or at least statistically speaking in the Western world, like in England where I am and in France where the show is set, they are less stigmatized conditions than something like psychosis. But I was pretty surprised this came up, considering I think like about 50% of my subscribers are American, and my understanding of America as well, most of my research is focused on Europe and Asia, but my understanding from the research I've done in America, like just a small amount of research, was that something like anxiety isn't as badly stigmatized there as in other countries or other conditions in America. So I was surprised that this was even like a reason that people thought was like a valid criticism of hatred for her. Now, is Marinette overdramatic sometimes? Yeah. Could it be annoying to some people? Yeah, absolutely. I find it annoying too sometimes, but I would argue most of it is done for comic relief. Again, we gotta remember, this is meant for children. Having a dramatic main character is nothing new, and she is 14. I was also pretty melodramatic when I was 14. Like, changing the voicemail on her phone in transmission to let everyone know she's upset. It's just for comedic effect. If you think about it, this whole start of that episode, up until Adrien went back to Marinette's after they had the Miraculous taken, it was quite a depressing start to the episode. They kind of needed some humour in there. And of course, you may not have found it funny. Totally valid if you don't find it funny, that's fine. You don't have to find everything that's meant to be funny. I certainly don't, whether it's about the show or just other jokes in general. But it was meant for comedic effect, it wasn't meant to be like attention seeking or whatever. So yeah, she panics a lot, but she always has done. That's who she is as a character. But there is a difference between panicking and panic attacks. So there were a few comments saying she has too many panic attacks. She's only had one panic attack in the whole show, and that was in Strike Back. Her panicking and being like, oh, everything is a disaster, that's not a panic attack. We all panic from time to time. If you never had a panic attack, I hope you never do because they're horrible. But like, they're not the same thing. And to say it was for no reason, I'm just like, did you watch the season 4 finale? She realised her mistake with Felix, gets all the Miraculous taken from her. What else would be the appropriate response here other than having a panic attack? I think if I was her in that moment, I probably would have fainted, to be honest. She is 14 years old. What on earth did you expect her reaction to that happening to be? There's also critique that she's not confident now she's dating Adrien, but like, Marinette obviously has self-esteem issues. Self-esteem issues aren't completely rectified when you start dating the boy you like. you still have them, they don't just disappear. Like, and her self-esteem issues weren't aided by the season 4 finale. Like, I'd be nervous dating him too. Like, I'd be constantly thinking, are you Adrien the whole time? Or are you Felix? Who are you really? Like, you know, it's really difficult for her. And you know, don't get me wrong, I think she'll get there. She'll have days where she feels better. I certainly do. I have days where I'm really confident and I think I'm amazing, but there are other days I think I'm like literally the worst person on earth. And Marinette clearly does too. It won't change overnight, that would be so unrealistic, and she is 14. I know she was in a relationship with Luca, but it seemed like it went nowhere, and also seemed like she didn't really want to be in the relationship anyway. So fair enough that nothing really happened. So she has no confidence with dating, and she loves Adrien so much. She has put so much pressure on herself for this to go well. I'd be nervous too. I'd be bricking it every single time I saw him. So people with self-esteem issues don't often do well immediately in a relationship, which I know from experience. And there's also this critique as well that she gets help from others, and I was like, why is that even a criticism? Why is her asking for help for other people a reason to hate her? She's 14, she is a child. Have you never asked for help for anything when you were a child? Or even now, when you're a teenager or an adult or however old you are? Have you never asked for help for anything before? Why is it wrong to ask for help? And then there was just a general comment that her anxiety was annoying. And I'm just like, I can guarantee as a person with anxiety that whilst you may get slightly annoyed by their anxiety, I can guarantee that the person most annoyed by their anxiety is the person experiencing it. So going off that, I'm going to tell you a little story about Cartoon Apocalypse. And I didn't ask him permission to tell the story because I was too anxious, and you'll understand why I didn't ask him permission at the end. But I don't think he'd mind. He didn't ever ask me to keep it a secret. And it's not a bad story. He looks great in the story. It's me who looks like the idiot in the story, so I don't think he'd mind. So let's go for it. As a lot of you know, my birthday is in August, and we always have like a little celebration on the channel in some way, because it's my birthday, obviously. And my moderators on Discord decided they wanted to do something nice for me. So my head moderator is also one of Aiden's mods, so he kind of knows Aiden and all of my moderators, and if you've been around long enough as well, you'll know the reason I started my channel was because of Aiden. If I'd never watched him, I never would have made my own channel. They knew I really looked up to him, and we weren't really friends at this point, but we'd spoken a bit, and he was really nice to talk to. So my head mod asked Aiden if he would film like a little clip just to say happy birthday to me, and they'd send it to me on my birthday and not to tell me. So I believe it was like 20 minutes later, Aiden sent back a clip saying happy birthday to me, and also within that clip he asked me to collab. So Aiden didn't say a single word about it, and neither did any of my mods. I had zero indication this was happening. Then I think it was like 10 PM on my birthday, I got sent this clip. I watched it. I cried because it was so lovely, and I immediately messaged Aiden after I thanked my mods for doing this. I immediately messaged Aiden to say thank you for the message, yes, I'm totally down to collab. So it was kind of like my birthday present, that first collab where we played Subjective Guess Who with Miraculous characters. So that was basically my birthday present, and because, like I said, I'd watched Aiden for so long and really looked up to him, and he's the reason why this channel exists, I was definitely getting like, I was putting like a lot of pressure on myself to make sure this collab went well, because first of all it was a birthday present, but also second of all it meant a lot to me, and then also thirdly I actually had to wait quite a while to film with Aiden. Aiden is super duper busy in real life outside of YouTube, and I don't think, so my birthday's right at the end of August, I don't think we filmed until like October. I had to wait quite a while to film with him because of how busy he is, which is totally fine, but because of that I put even more pressure on myself to make sure it went well. And the first collab went really well. We had a great time filming together. I really enjoyed it. I was so happy. So then we sent each other the footage the other person needed, but by the time I sent mine to him and downloaded his footage, it was like 10 PM, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go to bed, I'm gonna edit this tomorrow. So it was fine. So when I woke up the next morning to edit it, I put my footage in, it was fine. I put his in, for whatever reason, there was no audio on his. And my first reaction was to have a panic attack, and I did, and then I cried for about an hour, and then I finally messaged Aiden, and I was like, hey, the sound isn't working on your footage. I was trying to give no indication that I was upset about it to this day, I guess, unless he's watching this or if someone tells him. He doesn't know I got upset because I put so much pressure on myself for it to go well, because it was a birthday present and I looked up for him so long, and I had to wait like 2 months to actually film with him because of how busy he is. I was like, this has to go well, this has to go well, and then something went wrong. It was like Marinette said, it was a complete disaster. So I was, yeah, I just wanted it to go well, because at that point, like, the only thought that morning, the day after we filmed, was that I wasted his time. We like filmed, I think in total, for like an hour with each other. So we were on the phone for quite a while. So I'd taken an hour of his time when he's super busy, probably doesn't get that much time off. And I'd taken an hour of it and I'd wasted it because now the audio wasn't working and I was convinced it was my fault, that I'd done something, that I should have recorded his Discord audio or something. Not that I even know how to do that, but I was totally convinced that this was my fault. And because of the time difference between us, like, yeah, I did message Aiden like after an hour of this happening. I'm in England though, he's in America. He didn't reply to me until about 5 PM. So from like 9 till 5 on this Sunday, I was a complete and utter mess because I was so upset about wasting his time. But then he eventually replied and was like, oh, what editing software do you use? And so I told him and he found the solution. He was like, you just need to do this and the sound will come up. And it worked. And it was fine. So I'd panicked for like about 10 hours over something that he managed to fix in like 20 minutes. So yeah, so I thought everything was fine. But like the whole time I spoke to him after it, I was just worried he was going to bring it up. I had blown it up so much in my head, so even though he doesn't know, unless he's watching this, how upset I got and that I had a panic attack about it, like to him it was probably inconsequential and that he's completely forgotten about it by now. But I haven't. It's still something I think about every single time I talk to him. Every single time I see he's uploaded a video, it's still something at the forefront of my mind. Like a couple of weeks ago, me and some of my moderators, we play Among Us together and Aiden joins us. And the whole time I was paranoid he was going to say something. And of course he didn't, because why would he? Aiden has been nothing but kind and lovely and understanding towards me. He's one of the nicest people I think I've ever met in my entire life. And if he watches this video, he'll be so confused because he's probably going to be like, when did any of that happen? Because these are tiny, minute things he probably won't even remember anymore. But to me, because of my anxiety, they are a huge deal. And whilst to Aiden, or to anyone else this may have happened to, they are inconsequential and don't matter at all. They matter a lot to me because of all the pressure I put on myself around collabing with him, because to me it's such a big deal. And don't get me wrong, it still is a big deal even though we are friends now. But in that moment I got so panicked about all of those different things, and even now I'm still annoyed with myself for feeling like this. So I can guarantee to you, if you dislike Marinette for her anxiety and think it's the most annoying thing about her, I can guarantee the person who is the most annoyed about their anxiety is the person with their condition, not you. They know that whatever, for the most part, is making them anxious, they should just be able to do, but they can't. And they know they should be able to, but they just can't. Like I know with Aiden, he's really nice. He has like no track record that I'm aware of for being rude to people for no reason or for doing something slightly wrong. I know I've got no reason to be anxious, believe me, I know, but I still feel that way. And believe me, I wish I didn't, but I do. So I guess this part of the video is aimed at people who dislike Marinette for her anxiety. You probably already know someone with anxiety, even if they haven't told you they have it, and you yourself may sadly get anxiety too one day. And while you may be annoyed at others for their anxiety, I promise you it's only a fraction of how annoyed they're going to be at themselves for not being able to do whatever. So the next section, now we've done that one, is about Marinette being toxic and manipulative towards her friends. And I saw this in a few comments and I asked some people to elaborate, but they really didn't. So I was a little bit confused on this one, and I tried to look for evidence and I'm like, someone did say she treats them like trash, and I'm not really sure I can agree with that. Like, yes, she lies when she goes off to be Ladybug, but other than that, like, that's all I could find. She tries to make it up to them if she misses something, and she's always there for him for the most part. Sometimes she is a bit late to the party because she's off doing Ladybug stuff, but like, you know, that's just part and parcel of the show. Like, that's the whole point of Gang of Secrets. The only real example I could think of was in Crocodile when she asked Julika to uninvite her own brother from the party. And obviously that was a bit silly, but again, I think that was done for comedic effect. Obviously it's fine if you didn't find that funny, but it was just like, okay, I wouldn't really say that was being toxic and manipulative towards her friends. I think that's a bit of an extreme description. Also, a lot of people said it's kind of part of the same category. She inserts herself into other people's stories I'm like, yeah, because she's the main character. Like, this isn't an ensemble cast with several leads, or like the lead baton gets passed around. It's one lead. If it was an ensemble, yeah, it would be weird if Marinette was in everyone's stories. But it's not. She's a lead, so she gets to be in all the stories, because that's what happens when you're the lead character usually, especially for children's shows. So I was a bit confused on this one, to be honest. It's like, again, if you don't like the idea of there only being one lead, it just sounds like the show isn't for you, which is totally fine. Not everything is for everyone. A lot of people were tying how she treats Chloe and Lila into this as her being a toxic and manipulative friend, but it, like, Marinette, at least in the show anyway, so far, has not been friends with either one of the girls, so I don't really understand why that was tied in to it, but okay, let's talk about it anyway. She's not friends with either one of them. And yes, she has been rude towards them, for example, like Lila and Volpina, but she's faced the consequences of that, and those consequences are still ongoing because of Lila's continuing behaviour. But to me, she's just standing up for herself most of the time. Like, it seems from what she said in Origins that Chloe used to bully her, which probably is the reason why Marinette has low self-esteem now, or one of the reasons why. And as such, I don't really think it's wrong for Marinette to stand up for herself when Chloe says something mean to her, or for her to call Lila out on her lies. I think those are good things. Again, it's for children. I think those are good things for children to see. Like, if someone's bullying you, tell them to stop. Stand up for yourself. If someone's lying, say something. Those aren't toxic and manipulative, those are good traits to have. Now, I know Chloe in the season 3 finale, it's a bit of a different situation. Marinette gives the Miraculous to Kagami instead of Chloe because she didn't want Adrien and Kagami to kiss. It was very, very selfish of Marinette, but there were consequences to that in that Chloe got akumatized, and it was a pretty tricky Akuma, and other identities were exposed. Arguably, yes, it is hypocritical to give the Miraculouses to Ali and Max and Nino and so on in season 4 onwards. However, I don't think it's as black and white of an issue though. Chloe willingly told everyone in Queen Wasp, I think, her identity. The rest of them didn't. It wasn't their choice, them revealing her identity. Apart from Kagami. That was, I still don't understand why Kagami did that in Akari Goes In, but she did. Okay, let's talk about Kagami another time. But it's not as black and white of an issue as I think everyone makes it out to be. Chloe revealed her identity willingly and also put a load of other people willingly in danger in Queen Wasp. The other Miraculous holders, again apart from Kagami, who also revealed it herself willingly, have never done that, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, but again, Marinette is meant to make mistakes. Yes, she 100% made the wrong decision in the season 3 finale due to jealousy and I guess selfishness. Because again, you know, she's a teenage girl with a crush and makes poor judgments when it comes to that crush. It's pretty realistically. Was it arguably toxic to do that? But again, I would have done the same thing if I was 14 and Marinette. So it's pretty normal in my opinion, and again, another example of her making a mistake that children can learn from. She isn't meant to be perfect, but again, I'll say it again, the people saying she's perfect and makes no mistakes are the same people calling her out on the mistakes they hate. You can't have this both ways. So now we're gonna try and answer why did all of this hatred occur? Because whilst, you know, obviously you don't have to like all characters in whatever you watch or read or whatever, that's fine. I certainly don't like every single character in anything I've ever watched or read or whatever. I want to try and talk about why I think this hatred towards Marinette started, because I do feel like a lot of it, like her being toxic and manipulative towards her friends, I don't think that's a thing. The anxiety thing, I think that's just mental health stigma. I don't think it's because Marinette's done anything wrong. She's not a Mary Sue, she's not even a stalker. Is it a bit weird? Yes, but it just seems like to be coming from nowhere. But it just kind of like seems to be like no like real valid reason for criticism against her. So I'm just trying to come up with some ideas of where this came from, but I don't think we'll ever know for sure, unless of course you have been in the fandom since the show's inception. Perhaps you'll know a bit more than me, and I would really appreciate your insights in the comments. So I think the first reason is due to Thomas Astruc and people's dislike for him. And honestly, I don't like him either, but there was this rumour that was mentioned quite a few times in the comments, but like I said, it's a rumour, and all the people who commented it weren't actually sure if it was true. But we'll talk about it anyway, that apparently he used to date someone called Sabine, hence why Tom's name, Marinette's dad, is Tom, because he's Thomas. and Marinette was the imagined child they would have, but they ended up breaking up and now he's married to someone else and has a child with this other person. So Marinette is basically this imaginary child he had with a past girlfriend. And because of that, she's made out to be perfect because she's this child that never existed, of his daughter that never existed. And I'm just a bit like, is that a valid reason to hate her for it? Like, if anything, I think that's quite cute if it's true. Like I said, I don't know what it is, but I think it's quite cute. But that does seem to be one of the reasons why the hatred for Marinette started, which I don't particularly think is a very valid reason to hate her. You know, that just seems a bit strange. So whilst Thomas Asterix seems to be, you know, part of it, because I said at the start of the video, I wasn't here from the start, so, you know, I didn't see how the hate for Marinette developed the same way I did for Zoe, but from what I have seen recently, I definitely feel like misogyny does play a part in it. So like we did before, let's define our terms. Misogyny is the dislike of, contempt for, or ingrained prejudice against women. And I do really feel like it seems to be in play here, whether it's just a little bit or it's a lot. I'm not really sure. Because like I said before, we're going to come back to Glaciator 2. Adrien does a load of very kind of similar creepy things towards Ladybug. He has loads of pictures of her on her phone, but I don't see anyone calling him creepy in the same way people go to town on Marinette and just tear her apart and say those things about her. Like, so the best example of this is in Glaciator 2, where he is very pushy to Ladybug. He is pushy in other episodes, but I think Glaciator 2 is to everyone the most recent and best example of it. He is incredibly pushy towards her. She tells him to stop more than once. He doesn't, so she puts him in a bin. And whilst no, it wasn't very nice, if I was strong enough to put a man in a bin every single time one harassed me, I totally would. He was harassing her in that moment, but no one seems to care about it. He's also great at loads of different things. But he isn't called a Mary Sue. He's good at modelling, playing piano, speaking Mandarin, fencing, being cat noir. He's lovely, he's kind, he's intelligent, but no one calls him a Mary Sue. I don't hate either one of them. I love Adrien and Marinette dearly. They are both in my top 10 favourite characters. Top 5 actually. But like, if you're gonna call Marinette out for all of these things, then keep the same energy for Adrien. You can't do it to one and then not to the other. And like playing into this was, I saw a lot of comments saying that Marinette gets so sad so easily, whereas Adrien is being neglected at home and he doesn't have his mum, whereas Marinette is from a loving home and she's allowed out whenever she wants, which is true. I'm not pretending it's not. It definitely is true. Their home lives and their upbringing, from what we know of it so far, are vastly different. I'm not pretending that's not true. But the argument in the comments was, therefore, she's not allowed to feel sad because she doesn't have it as bad as Adrien. And I was just like, that's just awful. Like, different things make us all sad and make us react differently and affect us all differently. I would argue my anxiety is far worse than Marinette's. Within the course of a year so far, she's only had 1 panic attack, where on average I get about 4 a week these days. Like, so I would argue my anxiety is far worse than Marinette, hence why I couldn't hack it. I said it before, I'll say it again. I wouldn't have made it past Mr. Pigeon #1. I'd be like, I'm sorry, I can't deal with this. As soon as I saw that Akuma, I'd just be like, you know what, I'm out, give it to someone else, I'm not doing this. But Marinette can handle it. I can't, and I'm sure there are things that I do that Marinette couldn't handle. For example, for my PhD, every single day I am reading about people in Japan killing themselves. It is truly awful to read about, but I guess because of the way I've been brought up, I apparently have a mind strong enough to be able to read about suicide every single damn day of the week. Other people wouldn't be able to handle it, and I know that, and that's okay because there are things other people do that I couldn't handle, and that's normal. We all handle different things differently, and different things make us happy and sad. Is Adrien's life, in general, if we look at it broadly, worse than Marinette's probably ever will be? Yes. Does that mean she is never allowed to feel sad? No. If we use that logic, then Adrien also isn't allowed to be sad either, because guaranteed there's someone on this planet who has an infinitely worse life than he is currently having. If Marinette can't be sad, then neither can Adrien, because I'm sure someone is unfortunately getting treated far worse than he is. So by that logic, he can't be sad either. Different things make us sad, and just because you wouldn't be sad in this situation doesn't mean someone else isn't allowed to be. Everybody has it hard, but it doesn't mean you get to take away from other people's struggles because you think you have it harder or this person has it, whatever it is. You are allowed to feel sad. Does Adrien have it worse than Marinette? Yes. That doesn't mean Marinette's not allowed to get upset. A few people also said Marinette plays a victim by having panic attacks, and that's just disgusting. Marinette reached her absolute limit in Strike Back, absolute limit, and I think if you'd been through everything she had between Stoneheart and Strike Back, you either wouldn't have lasted that long or you would have had the exact same reaction she had. Why can't she be sad and have a panic attack? She is only 14 years old, she is only a child, she has just been through hell. You'd have a panic attack too. And yet other creators, I'm not gonna name who, think it's funny to call Marinette a rapist. Calling people that isn't funny. Jokes are meant to be funny. That's not funny. Rape isn't funny. Maybe I feel it more keenly because I'm a woman and crimes against women, at least in England and other countries as well, seem to be steadily on the rise, unfortunately. But I had to take kickboxing classes from the age of 8 because that was the only form of self-defense in my area that we could afford for me to learn, because grown men had already started catcalling me when I walked home from school in my school uniform. There was no way you could have mistaken an 8-year-old for a 20-year-old. I was quite obviously a child. Rape isn't funny, and neither is being called a rapist. It is serious, and I think it's disgusting that even happened in the first place. Now, this isn't to say that every single Miraculous Ladybug creator, particularly a male one, is a misogynist, or just like people in the fandom at large, like a male Miraculous fan is a misogynist. That's not what I'm saying at all. But there does just seem to be, in general, again without naming any names, a larger problem of misogyny in the fandom, and they will hate her for no matter what she does. And again, going back to the start of the video when we talked about Mary Sue, hence why we defined it, I really do think at this point, at least where Miraculous is concerned anyway, that the term Mary Sue seems to have become synonymous with female character I don't like, but I can't think of a good enough reason why. Which in this case would be misogyny, basically. It's fine if you don't like her, just hold your hands and say, yeah, I don't really like her, she's not really for me, and then move on with your life. You don't need to tear her apart the way you do. So in conclusion, I think for the most part that Marinette is a pretty well written character. We have seen her progress from someone who was lively and bubbly in season 1 to almost someone with depression symptoms in season 3, and to try and find herself and gain more confidence in season 4 and have it all taken away from her, whilst also trying to juggle relationships, romantic and otherwise, while still trying to save the city this season. And she is only 14 years old. I think she's amazing. She is by no means a perfectly written character, and it's okay if you don't like her. But I do genuinely feel that a lot of the criticism directed at her writing is egregiously misplaced and often based in misogyny, unfortunately. Like, if you don't like a character, then don't like them and move on with your life. Like, she literally, she's not real, but like, anything she does, she cannot win. Marinette is hated for absolutely nothing. She cannot do anything right in the eyes of the majority of the fandom. And as such, I believe I said this probably a few weeks ago now, so Jeremy Zag posted, and then quickly took it down, a story to say they're starting the process of the production of the live action, and I would assume that means writing scripts and getting a cast together. And I said in that video that I already feel bad for some of the cast who they're going to pick for certain characters, and one of them was Marinette. I already feel bad, like I don't know if the live action's going to go ahead, but let's assume it does. I already feel bad for whoever they pick for Marinette, because they're more than likely going to pick a child, because she is one, probably a bit older than 14, they tend to cast a couple of years older for children, but she will be subjected to all of this hatred, and I already feel bad for her. Not to say that the voice actors, who I think for all languages are all adults for Marinette, not to say that an adult deserves the hate or whatever, but an adult is far more better equipped to deal with the hatred from the Miraculous fandom, rather than an actual child herself. Like, part of me at the minute doesn't mind so much because, yeah, Marinette isn't real. But at the minute, all this fandom just seems to know is how to hate someone, and it's pretty disgusting. So in my opinion, Marinette isn't the problem. The fandom is. They just want to be angry all the time because that's the only thing this fandom has learned how to do. And honestly, I do wish that I knew how or why exactly it got like this, but I don't. I just kind of arrived and the whole fandom was already on fire, and I think it's kind of too late to put it out. It's just gonna burn itself to the ground. And it's pretty sad because I think it could have been really amazing. Like, I think for the most part, the community I have in my comment section on my Discord server are lovely and wonderful. So I don't know how it got like this, but instead of it being nice, which it could have been, the main character has just become the fandom scapegoat. So yeah, that's pretty depressing, to be honest. So anyway, besties, that's what I think. Thank you for staying till the end of the video. I know it was a long one, my voice hurts. I'd love to do more of these. I've done one on Zoe already, I've done one on Marinette. I want to do one on Chloe, but I think I want to wait until the end of the season just to see what they do with her completely. But for now, that's all the ideas I have. If you want me to maybe make a part 2 for this, if you've got some other reasons why you think it's okay to hate this girl for doing absolutely nothing wrong, I don't mind. I'll defend both Marinette and Zoe until I am blue in the face, because I love both of these girls and I know they're not real, but I just don't think the writers deserve the criticism they get. I think it's pretty disgusting, to be honest. So anyway, besties, I'd love to know what you thought of this video. It's totally okay if you still disagree with me, but as I always say, besties don't always agree with each other, but they always respect each other's opinions. So I'd love to know what you think, besties, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!